Welcome to this deep dive. And wow, this is some pretty fascinating stuff, I have to say. Future tech warfare, even a bit of philosophy. We've got a lot to cover.
It is quite the mix, I have to agree. It seems like someone's been doing their homework.
Yeah, you shared a whole bunch of stuff with us, academic papers, research reports, even some sci-fi. And it's all centered around this thing called the Deformable Hyperscript Protocol, or DHSP.
It's clear that you're interested in how all this technology could completely reshape things. Not just the online world, but like our entire reality.
Right. It's pretty mind-blowing when you think about it. I mean, we're talking about the evolution of the internet, the rise of AI, and even the training of what these sources call the next future soldier.
That's a great place to start, I think,
Yeah.
because that seems to be at the heart of a lot of this research.
Okay, so let's start with the DHSP. Then we can get into all the implications and stuff. It's basically being pitched as the internet, but in 3D and like ready for space.
Right. Yeah, that's the big idea. The DHSP is meant to be so much more dynamic and immersive than what we have now. Not just static pages, but interactive 3D environments.
I can barely wrap my head around that. What would that even look like?
Well, think about it this way. Instead of just reading text on a screen, you're actually stepping into a virtual world where you can move around, interact with objects and other people. It'd be like a video game, but for everything.
Okay, so I can kind of see that, but how is that even possible? I mean, the internet we have now is already pretty complex.
Well, that's where all the technical challenges come in. The DHSP would require a level of computing power and bandwidth that's beyond anything we have today. It would need completely new infrastructure and protocols.
Yeah, you've got notes here about overcoming existing bottlenecks, navigating all the competition between the big tech companies, and ensuring AI is used responsibly. That's a lot to unpack.
It is, but it's also what makes this so fascinating. The DHSP isn't just about building a new technology. It's about rethinking our entire relationship with the digital world.
Okay, so we've got this incredibly ambitious vision for the future of the internet, but then we've also got this whole other layer with the next future soldier. It's like blending ancient wisdom with cutting-edge technology.
That's one of the things that struck me as well. You've highlighted sections about the next future soldier, and it's really where things get interesting.
Yeah, these sources talk about how it's not just about giving soldiers like fancy gadgets. They're looking at mental discipline, strategic thinking, and even using ancient texts like Sun Tzu's Art of War to train these future warriors.
It's an interesting juxtaposition, isn't it? This idea of combining ancient philosophies of warfare with futuristic technology.
It really makes you think about what it even means to be a soldier in this rapidly changing world.
Right, because it's not just about physical strength anymore. It's about mental resilience, adaptability,
Hmm.
and the ability to think strategically in a complex and unpredictable environment.
Which makes me think about some of the stuff you flagged about the role of women in special operations. I mean, they're referencing figures from pop culture like Wonder Woman and Aeon Flux. It's not every day you see academic papers citing comic book characters.
Yeah, that caught my eye too. I think it speaks to how the researchers are really trying to think outside the box here. They're looking at different archetypes of female warriors, considering both the physical and mental aspects of combat.
I mean, those are two very different characters, right? Wonder Woman is like this mythical Amazonian princess, while Aeon Flux is this futuristic secret agent.
Exactly, and I think that's the point. They're trying to broaden our understanding of what a female warrior can be, challenging traditional gender roles and stereotypes.
Okay, that makes sense. Now on to something that completely threw me for a loop. This whole MIMS thing. Honestly, it sounds like something straight out of a science fiction novel, membranous interface of material and spiritual. What is that all about?
Yeah, that's a mouthful. It's basically a framework for understanding the relationship between the material world and the spiritual realm. And the researchers use it to analyze data and predict future trends, which is where this MEMIS scoring system comes in.
Okay, so MEMA evaluates things like ideas, objects, even actions based on how beneficial or harmful they are to humanity.
Right. You got it. It's a way of measuring the impact something has on the world, both in the short term and the long term.
But here's what I don't get. According to this research, a simple trash can gets a higher MEMA score than a complex academic paper. How does that even work?
That's one of the things that makes this system so interesting. It challenges our assumptions about what's valuable. In this case, a trash can, while seemingly mundane, plays a vital role in public health and sanitation. It has a direct and positive impact on people's lives.
So it's not just about intelligence or complexity, it's about real-world application and benefit to society.
Exactly. It's a very pragmatic approach to evaluating the worth of something. And it leads directly into their concerns about technocracy and the future of warfare.
Okay, so before we jump into that, let's just make sure we're all on the same page here. Technocracy, if I'm understanding this right, is basically a system where the tech experts are calling the shots, especially when it comes to war.
You got it.
Hmm.
Think AI-powered weapons, cyber warfare, even the blurring line between virtual reality and actual combat. They're exploring the potential benefits and dangers of all this advanced technology in the hands of a technocratic elite.
Which is kind of terrifying when you really think about it.
It is. There's a lot at stake here, and the researchers are really grappling with the ethical implications of all this new technology.
Okay, I think that's a good place to pause for now. We've covered a lot of ground already, and I need some time to process all this.
That's good. We'll pick up where we left off in part 2.
And we'll delve even deeper into the DHSP and all its mind-blowing implications, so stay tuned. All right, so we're back, and we're ready to go even deeper into this whole DHSP thing. One of the things that really struck me was how these papers don't just talk about like a theoretical future internet. They actually get into the nuts and bolts of how to build it.
Right? They do. They really go into depth on the technical side of things. And one of the things they emphasize is that we're going to need completely new programming languages to handle a 3D internet.
Yeah, you've got something here about how languages like HTML and JavaScript, they're just not going to cut it.
Exactly. They were designed for a 2D web. A 3D internet is going to require a totally different way of structuring and processing data. Is a whole new paradigm.
It's like when we went from 2D graphics to 3D in video games and movies, it wasn't just about like better visuals, it was a fundamental shift in how things were programmed and rendered.
Right on. That's a perfect analogy. The DHSP is going to demand a similar kind of paradigm shift in how we think about online data and interactions.
Okay, so what are they proposing? Like, what would these new languages look like?
Well, one paper proposes a new language called ResLang,
Yeah.
specifically designed for the DHSP and something they call the 3D PCOS.
ResLang. It's kind of catchy. What's the thinking behind it?
Well, it aims to combine the best features of object-oriented and non-object-oriented programming. The idea is to create a language that's powerful enough to handle anything from basic web development to complex AI algorithms.
So it's like a universal language for this 3D internet.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's designed with AI in mind. So it'll be easier for AI systems to interpret and translate data.
Which makes sense given how central AI seems to be to the whole DHSP project. It's like they're not just building a new internet, they're creating the foundation for an entirely new technological ecosystem.
Absolutely. They're really thinking big picture here. And one of the things that really focus on is security. With a 3D internet, you're not just worried about data breaches, you're also worried about attacks on critical infrastructure.
Because the line between the digital world and the real world becomes so blurred.
Exactly. Imagine a hacker taking control of self-driving cars or disrupting power grids through the 3D internet. The stakes are much higher.
Okay, so security is obviously paramount. What are they proposing?
They're talking about multi-layered security protocols, including things like quantum-resistant algorithms and a decentralized architecture.
So it's not just about building walls, it's about making the whole system more resilient.
Right. But they also acknowledge that technology alone isn't enough. Education and awareness are crucial too. Users need to be aware of the risks and how to protect themselves.
Which brings us to the social side of things. How do you think the DHSP could change the way we live, work, and interact with each other?
Well, for one thing, it could completely break down geographical barriers, leading to a truly global community.
But hasn't the internet already done that to some extent?
Sure, to some extent. But the DHSP takes it to a whole new level. Imagine experiencing a concert or a conference in a 3D environment that feels as real as being there in person.
So it's not just about communication, it's about shared experiences.
Exactly. It's about creating a sense of presence and immediacy that transcends physical distance.
That sounds incredible, but I also wonder about the potential downsides. Could it worsen problems like inequality and social isolation?
Those are valid concerns. Technology is a double-edged sword. It can be used for good or bad. It's up to us to ensure the DHSP is used in a way that benefits everyone.
So how do we do that? How do we prevent the DHSP from being exploited or misused?
Well, the research emphasizes the importance of inclusivity and accessibility, making sure everyone has access to the DHSP, regardless of their background or abilities.
So it's about democratizing this new technology, making sure it serves the needs of humanity.
Exactly. And they also talk about the need for user-centric design, prioritizing the needs and well-being of the people who will be using it.
It's not just about pushing the boundaries of technology, it's about building a digital world that's equitable and humane.
Right on. They actually suggest that AI could play a crucial role in achieving that.
Really? How so?
Well, they talk about using AI to monitor the system for harmful content, to personalize learning experiences, even to help people connect with others who share their interests.
So AI could be a force for good in this new digital landscape.
Potentially.
Yeah.
But only if it's developed and deployed responsibly. That's a key point.
One of the things that caught my attention was this concept of an AI daisy chain. What is that exactly?
It's an idea for a network of interconnected AI systems that can learn from each other and constantly evolve. Each AI builds on the knowledge and experience of the others, creating a kind of collective intelligence.
It's a fascinating idea, but also kind of scary. What if this AI daisy chain develops in ways we don't anticipate?
Yeah, it's definitely something to think about. The researchers acknowledge the potential risks and emphasize the importance of building in safeguards, like ethical guidelines and kill switches.
So it's about finding the right balance between fostering innovation and mitigating risk.
Exactly. It's a tightrope walk, but the potential benefits are huge.
Okay, so let's talk about the hardware for a second.
Huh.
The DHSP would require a level of computing power that's just mind-boggling. They even mention this hypothetical 1024-bit processor called the cadmium processor.
Yeah, that's the holy grail of this whole project. A processor capable of handling the immense data demands of a 3D internet. Think real-time ray tracing complex simulations, AI applications that are orders of magnitude more sophisticated than anything we have today.
124-bit processing. It's like trying to imagine a color that doesn't exist. How do they even propose we build such a thing?
Well, they suggest that it would require a fundamental shift in computing paradigms, moving away from traditional silicon-based transistors and exploring new technologies like quantum computing and biocomputing.
Okay, quantum computing, I've heard of that. But biocomputing, what's that all about?
It's using biological systems like DNA or proteins to perform computations. It's a really fascinating field with a lot of potential.
So the cadmium processor could be like a hybrid system combining different types of computing.
That's one possibility. They emphasize that this is going to require a multifaceted approach, drawing on expertise from a lot of different fields.
It sounds like we're on the verge of a major technological revolution.
We might be. But we need to remember that with great power comes great responsibility. The cadmium processor and the DHSP itself are incredibly powerful tools. But it's up to us to ensure they're used for good, not harm.
Well said. Before we wrap up this part, there's one more thing I wanted to touch on. These ultracomputers. What are those all about?
Ah, yes, ultracomputers. Those are essentially supercomputers designed for very specific tasks that require a ton of processing power.
And how do they fit into the DHSP?
Well, the researchers suggest that we could use ultracomputers to simulate 1024-bit computing environments. That would allow us to start testing and developing for the DHSP even before the cadmium processor becomes a reality.
So they're like a stepping stone, a way to bridge the gap between our current computing capabilities and the future of 1024-bit processing.
Exactly. And ultracomputers are already being used in fields like scientific research and AI. So the technology is there, it's just a matter of scaling it up.
It's also incredibly exciting, but also a little bit daunting. It feels like we're standing on the precipice of something truly transformative.
We are.
Mm.
And it's both exhilarating and terrifying at the same time. We need to approach this with a sense of wonder, but also with a lot of caution.
Well said.
Yeah.
All right, let's take another break, and then in part 3, we'll wrap up this deep dive into the DHSP and all its mind-blowing implications. So we're back for the final part of our deep dive into the DHSP, and honestly, I'm still reeling from all this stuff about 1024-bit processors and AI daisy chains. It's like something straight out of science fiction.
I know what you mean. It's really pushing the boundaries of what we thought was possible.
But what really gets me is how this whole DHSP thing goes way beyond just the technical stuff.
Yeah.
It really grapples with some big philosophical questions about, like, reality, spirituality, and even like destiny, you know.
It totally does. It's like they're trying to create a new technological paradigm, but also a new way of understanding the world and our place in it.
Yeah, one of the key frameworks they use is this concept of MIMS, the membranous interface of material and spiritual. It's a pretty wild idea.
It is. It suggests that there's this permeable boundary between the material world and the spiritual realm, and that these two domains are constantly influencing each other.
So like a two-way street with information and energy flowing back and forth.
Exactly. And the DHSP is envisioned as a tool to enhance that flow, making the integration between the material and the spiritual more seamless.
Okay, I'm trying to wrap my head around this. How does a technology like the DHSP actually bridge that gap?
Well, I think it has to do with the immersive and interactive nature of the DHSP. It's not about passively consuming information like we do with the current internet. It's about actively participating in creating and shaping digital experiences.
So it's more about expression and connection.
Exactly. And that creative process, that acts of bringing something new into existence, can be seen as a spiritual act in itself.
Okay, I'm starting to see where they're going with this, and that's where this whole MEMA scoring system comes in, right? To make sure that what we create in this digital space is actually beneficial to humanity.
Right? MAMA is like a moral compass for the digital age. It encourages us to think about the ethical implications of our actions and to use technology for good.
But how do we guarantee that the DHSP will actually be used in this way? I mean, how do we prevent it from being exploited or used for harmful purposes?
Well, the researchers really emphasize the importance of decentralization and open source development. By distributing power and control, they make it much harder for any single entity to manipulate the DHSP.
So it's like a digital democracy where everyone has a say.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's reinforced by the emphasis on transparency. The code is open for anyone to inspect and audit, so there's no hidden agendas or backdoors.
That's really important, especially for a technology that has the potential to impact society on such a massive scale.
Absolutely. And of course, there are robust security measures built in to protect against hacking, data breaches, and other malicious activities.
So we're talking about a secure, transparent, and democratic platform that prioritizes ethical behavior and empowers individuals. It sounds almost too good to be true.
It's definitely an ambitious vision, but the researchers believe it's achievable. They see the DHSP as more than just a technological upgrade. It's a cultural and societal transformation.
A transformation towards what?
A transformation towards a world that's more interconnected, more equitable, and more meaningful. A world where technology facilitates connection, creativity, and progress, rather than division, exploitation, and distraction.
Wow, that's a beautiful vision.
It is, and one that's worth striving for.
Well, this has been an incredible journey. We've covered so much ground, from the technical intricacies of the DHSP to the philosophical implications of MIMS and MAMA.
I agree. It's been a fascinating exploration, and I hope it's been as thought-provoking for you, our listeners, as it has been for us.
As we wrap up this deep dive into the DHSP, we encourage you to continue exploring these ideas, to ask questions, challenge assumptions, and engage in the ongoing conversation about the future of technology.
The choices we make today will determine what kind of digital world we create for ourselves and for future generations. Let's strive to make those choices wisely with a deep sense of responsibility, using technology to create a world that truly benefits all of humanity.
Well said. And on that note, we'll wrap up this episode of The Deep Dive. Thanks for joining us on this journey of exploration and discovery. Until next time, keep diving deep.